if somebody were to approach you on the street and say, what is the best way to be healthy? How would you respond to that?
Well, I don't think you can do, all of one and not have the other. So, I think, however, if you were to say, I've got X much energy or time to put into one thing, what would I put it into? And I would have to pick exercise as the better of the two choices. And I know that I think some people often are stuck on the, you can't outrun a bad diet sort of mantra. And that's true to maybe the extent that if outrunning a bad diet is around weight loss and only weight loss and like forever weight loss, then you would be forced to think that for sure. But from a health standpoint, I don't think that, to me anyway, that there's much question that being physically active or engaging in exercise, there's no downside to it. And we're learning more and more. And you said, departmental colleagues. I have one here at McMaster, Jen Heist, who just wrote an outstanding book, Move the Body, Heal the Mind. And it's really about the link between physical activity and mental health. And, it's something we're beginning to peel the layers back on now. And it's shockingly effective. And in fact, there are even trials comparing it head to head against antidepressant medication, and physical activity does just as well. So, I mean, that's pretty powerful medicine. And not that diet can't do a lot of things, it can. And people demonstrate day in and day out that it does. But if you got a fully charged battery and you said, I can put this energy into dieting or I can put it into exercise, I'd say pick exercise.
That's great. No, I oscillate on those two things all the time when I'm trying to think of what's more important. But you're absolutely right. It does seem like the research is coming back stronger and stronger and stronger, that the benefits of exercise on our mental health is incredible in many, many different ways. And it doesn't really seem to matter whether you're 12 or 43 or whether you're 87. It seems important throughout our entire lives.
Yeah, I think one of the things is we're beginning to appreciate what early life exposures mean. And so you mentioned 12, but we're going back now as far as people when moms are carrying their babies, how they're patterning these kids by the habits that they adopt while they're pregnant. So, I mean, we're really coming into some unprecedented territory when it comes to, what our behaviors have and what the impact that they have on our health long term is. And I think a lot of people are pretty impressed with what it is that exercise is being shown to do. So I'm learning still and have been privileged to be around such great people that have taught me a lot about things that I understood very little about. If you'd asked me, even 5 years ago, you said, does exercise change anything, to do with your brain? I'd be like, well, yeah, I don't know, a few things. But now, fast forward 5 years and it's astonishing. So we're learning lots. Diet's still important. You got to get the two in there. But exercise really kind of rules the roost, I think.
Yeah, that's great. Very well explained. When a listener hears you say exercise is very important, there must be a very unique and individual thought for each one of the listeners on what exercise is. That could be a spin class, that could be, powerlifting, that could be a bodybuilding show, that could be 80s aerobics, like who knows, all kinds of different things. So when you're talking about exercise, what do you exactly mean? Can it be really broad and include all of those things? Or is it, when you think of the benefits of exercise, are you thinking about particular types of exercise?
Yeah, I think, the umbrella that fits over the top of all of that is physical activity, right? And we can be physically active. Somebody said, I was out in my backyard, I was raking, and then I cut this, and then I planted this. I'm like, that's physical activity. And in fact, obviously, we're learning just how little physical activity you'd have to do to overcome what a lot of us spend most of our day doing, which is sitting down watching a screen. To be clear, it's sort of the biggest reduction in risk for any chronic disease happens when you take someone who's doing nothing to doing something. And that can be as little as, 15 minutes of walking a day. And, it doesn't have to be sort of power walking, just going out for a stroll. And that's the broad prescription, but the specific exercise, like you're targeted, like I have a goal in mind with this. So I want to get fitter. I want to get healthier. I'm going to get on the bike. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go to a Pilates class. I'm going to, do something that's pre-planned and concerted in terms of effort and time, and that's exercise. And you're absolutely spot on. Like, I mean, the types of exercise are boundless. And I think that the message, the real takeaway is that you shouldn't confine yourself to feeling like exercise has to be a knockdown, drag them out. If I don't sweat, it's not worth it type of activity. When in fact, we're figuring out now that it's, any sort of pattern of human movement is going to be beneficial. And then obviously people want to say, well, I'm interested in running 10 kilometers, a marathon, something like that. Well, by all means, then you've got to do a lot more than just get up, obviously. But the health benefits start, with the first few steps. And I try and make that point over and over to people. But, clearly, probably your audience has got some people in there going, no, man, I'm exercising 5 or 6 days a week. What more can I do? And, the answer is probably not a lot, but, power to you if that's what you do and that's what gets you out of bed and that's what motivates you. So for sure, exercise is a lot of things to a lot of different people.
Yeah. So at the very most general level, the beginning level, the most important thing to do is find something that you enjoy that you will do consistently, regardless of whatever that is. That would be like step one.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great.
People say, what's the best type of exercise? And the answer is always the one you can stick to, right? So don't take up something like if you're one of these people said, they say, well, I really kind of hate like lifting weights. And I'm like, oh, that's a shame. But I love going to yoga. And I'm like, well, have you ever tried the sort of a power yoga where you're doing some of these types of moves? Oh, I never thought of that. And I said, well, that's your body weight that you're moving around. I said, that's a good enough weight to start out with. So don't feel like, you need to lift something heavy or do it in here. I said, have you tried, resistance bands? And people are like, oh, I've never tried that. Well, so there's lots of different prescriptions, lots of ways of doing it. And, I think whenever people say, I don't like doing this or, that's not something, then my answer is always, well, maybe try something else, definitely find something you enjoy.
Yeah, that's great. I like to kind of point people in the direction of finding activities that even if you told them like this activity wouldn't be healthy for you when it actually is, you want to find the things that you would do regardless. Like I wake up really early on Wednesday mornings to go to the rink and talk smack with my hockey buddies. And like, I don't ever miss. I don't miss that because I absolutely love it. And I think the more people find those activities that I love this, I'm going to keep doing this because it's just fun and enjoyable. I think that's kind of the right place to go.
Absolutely. And I think that that highlights one of the things too, is that there are some people that for them exercise is a solo activity. They're happy when they're on their own and they go and do their own thing. And over time, I was always a team sport athlete, but I exercise for the most part by myself now. But it's always a great boon to me to come back and put the skates on and skate with some buddies and talk about how great we used to be. And right. For some people that's what it's all about. That's the thing that they do. And so I'm always saying to people, is what I'm doing, is that enough? Like I feel like I'm gaining some weight and I'm like, are you moving around? Are you doing it regularly? Are you having fun? And if it's check, then I'm like, what, you're doing the right things.
Yeah, that's great. Also very well explained. As we get more specific and people want more specific outcomes, especially when it comes to health span and lifespan. So lifespan is like, we want to be able to live a long life, which is great, but we also don't want to live 80 years and have 60 of those years be with terrible health and on all kinds of medications and metabolically unhealthy. We want health span also. We want to be healthy and active and, the idea of like live long and drop dead kind of a thing, or go to bed one night at 90 after skating with your buds at 90 and you don't wake up. When we think about those things, are there more specific applications that we can make for exercise as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. You make the point really well. We've added 30 plus years to our life expectancy in the last century. And, a lot of that has been, obviously public health, clean water and nutritional supplies and everything else like that, and hospital systems. But, eventually it's about prolonging life. And the question then you have to ask yourself is, what's the quality of your life if you have a chronic disease and you're being cared for, et cetera, et cetera. I'm a great fan of listening to, there's about 3 longevity type podcasters I listen to, and I'm always thinking, I don't want to live to be 120 and feel like 120. I'm quite good with, as you say, 90 and just drop off the table. That's cool. I do think we're beginning to appreciate now that there's a lot of longevity extending, but also health span extending diets that are out there. The tough part about translating that evidence is that it's mostly in rodents, right? And I'm still unclear whether that's going to translate to the human condition, but definitely keeping your body weight within a certain range and not getting too overweight is health expanding, and it's life extending as well. Physical activity is a tough one. On average, we think it adds, if you're hitting the sort of generic 150 minutes of aerobic, 2 days a week of resistance, and if you're in a pretty elite group, then you can expect to live about another 4 to 5 years, and your health span is a little better too. So it checks a lot of boxes. The caloric restriction stuff, the protein restriction stuff, I still squint a little bit. I need to see more data that comes from, primates, but definitely all the human studies that are out there, from a dietary perspective. If you can keep that energy intake on the lower side, I advocate a higher protein intake, as you know. So, that for me is, I think, a really valuable way to live. Try and preserve your muscle mass as much as you can.